Today I wanted to share with you guys about what the Ketu in 4th house and the Rahu in 10th house is trying to tell you. So let me talk about that. So what exactly does 4th house mean in common astrology, traditional astrology? So 4th house would imply roots, emotions, feelings, home environment, family, etc. But I don't think it is actually the definition of the 4th house, though there are some similarities between the common definition of 4th house in the astrology and my new redefinition. So if you look at some of the common themes within the labels of the 4th house in astrology, it's about home, right? Emotions, feelings. They all link to certain amounts of emotional nostalgia. And people with emotional nostalgia, sure, they are way more specific when it comes to demanding certain physical needs. But overall, I think people can agree, especially many people, can agree that it's overall somewhat easier. In more cases, it's easier to satisfy physical demands of someone who has a strong emphasis on 4th house or moon or cancer than someone who is constantly boosting sales performance, someone like Taurus or 2nd house or Venus. Right? I think people, let's say, let's compare people who are nostalgic and people who are hedonistic. It's overall going to be easier to satisfy physical demands of people who are nostalgic compared to people who are hedonistic. I think many people can agree, am I right? And so this new redefinition ended up implying that 4th house is about tranquility towards material ease, because the let me be real here, astrology never encourages us to deny whatever sense of material ease completely. Astrology doesn't do that. It doesn't tells us to reject all and whatever forms of material ease. It just tells us to tread lightly. That is both the hidden message of astrology and the message of Buddhism. It's never to tell us to reject material comfort completely. It just tells us to tread lightly. And so Ketu in the 4th house, because it's about being open to new forms and loosening old ideas about tranquility of material ease. This doesn't seem like a very good concept, or the idea sounds counterintuitive, because tranquility about material ease, it itself sounds good and it does lead to wisdom. So how do you exactly be non-attached to that concept, right? Ketu is all about going with the flow. So there are two suggestions I might suggest to you guys. So one is about trying to explore new options of daily expenses or hobbies, right? To allow yourself to spend more money on yourself when it comes to basic needs, daily food, even spending money on some of the more entertaining stuff, minor stuff, even. But usually it's about basic food, obviously. The other suggestion that I might suggest about Ketu in the 4th house is about balancing tranquility of material ease with right action, or how I would explain it. When you try to intake your source of food or water or your basic needs, right? Your clothes, for example, try to be non-exploitative, right? Um, try to inspect where the source of the food or the water or the clothes or the house comes from, right? These are all basic needs, and I think it's very important, right, to try to be non-exploitative when it comes to these sources of material comfort. So let me try to put, now obviously I do not have Ketu in the 4th house, but I do have a Scorpio in the 4th house. So let me use an example. So for example, because Scorpio is about meditation, and then if your meditation, you naturally intake less food, right? Scorpio 4th house natives. But let's say I have a K2 Scorpio in the fourth house, that means I would not demand from people to give me money to buy food, but the food that I bought would tend to be more exploitative, because K2 is like you try to learn the life lesson, but it's kind of like, because it's kind of like opposite, the counterintuitive when it comes to that concept, you ended up spending more money, or not spending more money, or spending money more on more occasions that the food source is very exploitative. So I think this is very important for K2 and 4th house natives to be aware of this situation, and to implement these kinds of concepts, where it's about spending more money, allowing yourself to spend more money, or even if it's on the minor stuff, right? From transitioning from major stuff to a little bit on minor stuff, allowing yourself to enjoy a little bit more, or try to um, be non-exploitive when it comes to your food source, your water source, your clothes source, your house source, your bed source, for example. Try, for example, the bed, you can turn your let's say animal leather clothing to like something like wool clothing, for example. This is also a good example. So these are the two suggestions I suggest towards um, K2 in the fourth house. So, so what about the Rahu in the 10th house? Well, it's about learning about mental redirection. And this is a really complicated issue compared to like K2 in the fourth house, because K2 in the fourth house is a lot more um, obvious and apparent, and it's easily physically manifestable, right? Manifest and then able, right? It's very easily to manifest upon physical realms. I think many people can agree, but 10th house is more about the discipline of the mind, and it's not especially not just about meditation, not about meditation. It's about mental redirection and perceptional redirection. Perception is our perceptions towards the world. And so it's going to be really upfront about your life lesson, about your north node in the 10th house, because I just personally trying to think up the explanation or the description about what is exactly the life lesson about Rahu or north node in the 10th house. But let me try to explain it on the spot. So I think with the Rahu in the 10th house, it's all about, you know, meeting certain physical challenges that you might not be able to that one. For example, people make you angry, people make you upset. You already try to be a good role model, passive role model. For example, if you're someone with Leo in the 10th house, for example, and people, you're already being a silent, passive, good role model that is like in accordance with goodwill qualities, wholesome qualities, or Dharma itself, and people still like, mock at you, or people still make you upset. They don't give you food, for example, right? In Leo in the 10th house is especially like that. So when it comes to Rahu in the 10th house, how do you learn the life lesson is to be mentally prepared. You can't control others' reactions or their feelings or how they ended up hurting you, but you can control how you treat them back, or what actions or words did you decide to speak to them in response, right? You don't need to deny that you're upset. You just need to, right? You can even like say, oh, you lead with, oh, I feel extremely upset about it, followed by what you will try to do, right, in the wholesome way. That is the definition of mental redirection, in my opinion. Of course, it's not a very good definition, because I still don't understand the full concept of right effort. How exactly is the life lesson of right effort should be like. But at least it's very important to understand that this concept is approximately described like this from the ancient Buddhism texts, I am not a very good translator on this topic, so please forgive me if I cannot explain it fully in detail in one go. So, for example, let's say you think you did nothing wrong, which is correct, right? For example, let's say romance is important for me, but I am being something, I don't think I was being sexually harassing other people, but other people, right? Is it wrong to chase after material gain or chasing after romance? Well, it is not wrong, but you need to tread lightly. But if you believe you did tread lightly, and people still take unreasonable methods or revenge against you, right? Even though you did nothing wrong, and especially not unreasonably wrong, like, and then it's time to like try to change the perspective of your mind and try to mentally redirect to try to not fall into wrong actions, even though the people or the other person rightfully hurt you and you indeed did not do nothing wrong, right? This is important for people who has Rahu in the 10th house, right effort. It's about trying to consider, okay, obviously I did nothing wrong. Maybe they did nothing wrong. Maybe they did something wrong. For example, they don't understand my situation. you know okay, how do I, let me change my perspective of my mind. How do I deal with this in a better way, right? Instead of trying to tunnel vision. Because yes, I think plenty of people believe themselves they did nothing wrong, and it is rightfully the case. But right effort is not about trying to argue with other people about right or wrong. It's about, okay, you wrong me, I did nothing wrong, but can I change my mind to find a better path. That is the concise definition and principle of right effort. And let's use another more easy to understand example, right? There's a YouTuber in a few years ago about Jake Doolittle, right? And he was trying to ask about charity about YouTubers, right? Because the YouTubers that he described are very emotionally sensitive, and then I do agree. I think people were intentionally trying to wrong him. Sure, they maybe donated other charities, but I think if you have 50K in your bank account, I don't think 500 is like that too tall order to ask to donate to Jake's charity. But I think what Jake can do is to redirect his mind, right? Because he doesn't understand the discipline of the mind, right? You cannot control others' reactions towards you, right? Sometimes you can use explanation to try to convince others to do good, to do good in the world, have lead by example and do better qualities. But sometimes you can't do that, right? Even someone like, for example, Penguin Zero or Charlie, right? He is a person who wants to do good, but for some YouTubers they don't. So the point is that Jake can try to redirect his mind and try to find a better path instead of tunnel vision or on these YouTubers need to be responsible and I won't let the matter go, right? He's not being tranquil about material ease, and I think that's another the different side of the coin between the Ketu in the 4th house and the Rahu in the 11th house is because when you redirect your mind constantly, it's very easy for you to be tranquil about material ease, and it's very when you're being less attached to material comfort, it's very easy for you to see the wisdom in redirecting your mind. I think those two are not internally related, but they have some sort of mutual influence on each other. So this is my opinion when it comes to Rahu in the 10th house. The conclusion is about constantly redirecting your mind. Now, Rahu in 10th house doesn't mean that the lesson needs to be dry and very boring. If you want something like, let's say, a person wants fame and influence when it comes to say, hey, I redirect my mind way more superior than others. Rahu in the 10th house can demand that, right? Compared to like Ketu or South Node in the 10th house, which you need to be very, very non-attached, right? Rahu is about exploring new options. So if you want to say, if you want to try to say, let's say, okay, you want to, increase your fame through being famous about redirecting your mind, right? When it comes to discipline of your mind constantly towards wholesome states, right? You can demand that. There is nothing wrong to demand fame and influence, because this is one of the good qualities as well. So you just need to tread lightly. You don't need to like suppress yourself. Just tread lightly when it comes to, if you want fame and influence regarding redirecting of the mind or discipline of the mind. This is an example. Obviously, for example, people maybe want to write a success story about discipline of the mind. You can also do that, right? It's not to say you should not suppress. You should not suppress your desires when it comes to, try to redirecting your mind. You need some external validation. There is nothing wrong with that. Just try to not force the situation, right? Tread lightly, and then try to not to force your ideas onto other people. I think that's very important about Rahu in the 10th house, right? You can do whatever you want. Just don't try to be more tranquil, tread lightly, and don't force your ideas onto other people. Everything else is fair game, right? You can demand as much fame and influence as you want when it comes to redirection of the mind, as long as you earn them righteously. That is all I ask of the viewers. So this is basically the conclusion of Ketu in the 4th house, which is about exploring two options when it comes to tranquility of material ease, material comfort, whether it's food or the more minor stuff, pleasant sights, and the Rahu in the 10th house, which is about exploring new options about redirecting your mind. So this is the end of the video. Thank you very much.